I was leaning against the kitchen counter, the sunlight spilling across my silk blouse, the soft hum of the city outside the window mingling with the low buzz of my phone. I'd just finished my morning coffee, the rich aroma curling through the air when it vibrated insistently. The name flashing on the screen made my chest tighten.
Mom.
I hadn't spoken to her in over 5 years, not since the night they told me to leave, that I wasn't family material anymore, and that my house, the one I'd poured every ounce of my soul into, should be handed over to my brother. I had smiled through my tears then, packed my bags, and walked out, never imagining I'd build a life strong enough to keep them at bay. Now here she was calling me like nothing had ever happened. I could hear the faint rustle of her voice through the line, words coded in the same entitlement, the same audacity that had once driven me out. My hands clenched around my phone, the cool metal biting into my skin. I told myself I was calm. I am calm. But beneath the veneer of my carefully curated life, my thriving business, my quiet apartment lined with books and paintings I'd chosen myself, there was a storm.
Pride.
Anger. And just enough irony to make me wonder if she even realized who she was speaking to now. I took a deep breath, tracing the rim of my coffee mug, and decided, this time, I wouldn't walk away. It feels like a lifetime ago, that night when my world crumbled under the weight of their words. I was 22, full of dreams and stubborn determination, convinced that love and family would shield me from anything. I remember the kitchen's harsh fluorescent light, how it made the linoleum floor gleam almost painfully, and the way my hands trembled as I clutched the letter I had brought them, a proposal for a new life, my plans, my ambitions. "Why can't you just think about your brother?" My mother's voice snapped, sharp as broken glass. "He deserves this house. He deserves everything we've worked for." I swallowed the lump in my throat, trying to speak, but my words stumbled, catching in my chest. I've worked for it too. Every dollar, every late night, every sacrifice. But my father cut me off, dismissing me with a wave that carried more contempt than air. "We made a mistake keeping you around," he said. "Maybe it's time you learned your place." I felt the sting of tears, the betrayal carving a hollow ache through my chest. The room spun, the kitchen light glaring down like a spotlight on my shame. I wanted to scream, to hit back, to make them see the years I'd poured into my future, but I didn't. I had nothing left to give them that could matter. That's when I remembered the little silver locket my grandmother had pressed into my hand that summer. "You're stronger than you know," she had whispered, her fingers trembling as she closed it around my palm. "Even when they try to take everything from you, you hold on to what is yours to create." With a shaking hand, I pocketed the locket. And that night, instead of collapsing under their words, I packed my meager belongings, kissed the dog who couldn't understand why I was leaving, and stepped out into the cold night air. I had nothing but a suitcase, a handful of coins, and a stubborn spark inside me. But I carried that spark and the locket like a secret shield. It whispered that this was not the end. It was a beginning. A life I would carve with my own hands, far from their shadows. Leaving my family behind didn't feel like freedom at first. It felt like stepping off a cliff. I landed in a city I barely knew, suitcase in hand, the locket from my grandmother swinging against my chest like a tiny heartbeat reminding me I wasn't truly alone. Every street corner, every coffee shop, every late-night walk felt like both a challenge and a promise. I could build something from nothing if I was willing to fight for it. The first months were brutal. I juggled multiple jobs, each one teaching me lessons I never expected: how to negotiate, how to stay calm under pressure, how to convince people to believe in me when I sometimes barely believed in myself. Nights blurred into mornings, the city lights reflecting in my apartment window while I pored over books, scribbled business plans, and typed out endless emails that often went unanswered. My fingers were raw from typing, my eyes red from exhaustion, but each small step felt like a victory. Then I met Rachel, a seasoned entrepreneur with an eye for potential. She walked into my tiny shared office one rainy afternoon, a steaming cup of coffee in hand and a smile that didn't judge. "You've got fire," she said simply, glancing at the piles of sketches and notes on my desk. Don't let anyone tell you it's too much for one person. You can do this. Her mentorship became a lifeline. Together, we strategized, pitched, and refined. I remember the thrill of landing my first big client, a boutique design firm that had overlooked my emails for months, and the disbelief when the check arrived, thick and tangible in my hand. It was a validation I had been starving for, proof that I was capable of more than my family ever gave me credit for. I began keeping a quiet profile. My Instagram feed showed only glimpses, a neatly arranged desk, a steaming mug, a skyline at sunset. No one from my family knew about the office lease I'd signed, the apartment I had bought outright, the art pieces I had chosen for myself. I learned that success, sometimes, tastes sweetest when it's your secret weapon. Years passed, and my life took shape in ways I hadn't dared imagine. I created a thriving business, a home that reflected my taste, and a network of people who inspired and challenged me. Every paycheck, every new contract, every milestone was a quiet victory over the years of doubt and rejection. I had built a world that belonged to me, brick by brick, choice by choice, without needing their approval or their interference. And yet, beneath the polished surface of this success, the locket still rested against my chest during late-night reflections, reminding me where I came from and why I would never let anyone take what I had earned. I heard the knock before I saw them. 3 sharp raps on my front door, like punctuation marks in a sentence I wasn't ready to read. My heart gave a brief stutter. I had rehearsed this moment 100 times in my head, but now, standing in my sunlit living room, the polished hardwood floor gleaming beneath my feet, the walls lined with the paintings I'd saved up for over the years, the reality hit differently. They walked in as if they owned the place. My mother, her posture perfect, a forced smile plastered across her face. My father, chest puffed up, trying to project authority, though I could see the hesitation in his eyes. And my brother, the unspoken reason they'd called me here, trailing behind like a shadow that once haunted me. For a moment, I let them look. I let them see the sleek modern furniture I had chosen, the rare orchids blooming in corners of my living room, the soft glow of lamps that made the space feel both grand and intimate. I let them take in the office corner, neat and powerful, with my name engraved on the doorplate, the awards on the shelf whispering of accomplishments they never imagined I could achieve. They scanned the room slowly, mouths slightly open, disbelief etching lines into their faces. I didn't speak at first. Silence, after all, can be the loudest sound. I sipped my coffee deliberately, feeling the warmth spread through my hands, watching their eyes dart from the artwork to the floor, to the books I had stacked carefully. Finally, I set the mug down and said softly, deliberately, "I hope you're comfortable. This is home. My home." My mother's forced smile faltered. We just thought." "Thought what?" I interrupted, voice calm but firm. "That I would welcome you back? That I would hand over everything I've built so you could give it to him?" My father's jaw tightened, and my brother looked down, unable to meet my eyes. I continued, letting the weight of every word land. This house, this business, every dollar, every late night, every single sacrifice, this is mine. I earned it. I didn't inherit it, I didn't stumble into it. And I didn't ask for your permission. I watched as comprehension flickered across their faces. Shock. A twinge of shame. A hesitant awe. My mother's hands trembled slightly. My father's knuckles whitened. My brother's shoulders sagged, as if years of entitlement had finally been replaced by the stark reality. I had done what they said I couldn't. I had built my own empire, quietly, deliberately, and without them. I paused, letting the silence stretch, letting them absorb the full measure of what I had accomplished while they had dismissed me. Then I leaned slightly forward and, softer this time, added, "You wanted to take my home for him." I kept quiet, but now it's clear. The only thing you'll be taking today is the truth. I am not the same girl you kicked out. I am stronger, and nothing, not even family, will take that from me. The room felt heavy with their realization. I could see my mother biting her lip, my father staring at the floor, my brother muttering something under his breath. And as I stood there, calm and composed, I felt the swell of triumph. Not revenge. Not anger. Pure, unshakable power born from years of struggle, perseverance, and relentless belief in myself. For the first time in years, I smiled, not at them, but at the woman I had become. The room was quiet, but it no longer carried tension. It carried possibility. I could feel it in the way my mother shifted on the couch, how my father's posture softened slightly, and the almost imperceptible slump of my brother's shoulders. They had finally realized that the game had changed, and now, for the first time, I held the upper hand. I took a slow, deliberate step forward, my heels clicking against the hardwood. "I'm not here to punish you," I said, my voice steady, but tinged with authority. "I'm here to set boundaries and offer a chance for change. But everything has conditions." Their eyes lifted, wary and uncertain, like children caught in a storm they didn't understand. I gestured toward the living room, at the home I had built piece by piece. "This is mine. Every inch, every brick, every corner. If you want a relationship with me, if you want any connection at all, it's on my terms. And my terms are simple, but non-negotiable. First, my mother." I looked at her directly. "You must stop using guilt as a weapon. You must acknowledge my achievements without undermining them. Therapy, reflection, learning to support rather than control. That's your path if you want my presence in your life." My father's eyes flicked toward mine, defensive but attentive. "You must admit your mistakes, not just to me, but to yourself. Stop trying to enforce your authority over my life. It's over. You can mentor, you can advise, but respect my independence, always." "And my brother?" He slumped further, fidgeting. "You'll pursue your own dreams," I said softly but firmly. "No more expecting my resources, my money, or my help to cover your failures. Stand on your own. Only then can we have an honest relationship." I paused, letting the weight of each condition sink in. This isn't punishment. It's accountability. Growth. Healing. If you can meet these terms, we can rebuild trust slowly, carefully. The room was silent again, but this time it was contemplative, not tense. I could see their minds racing, weighing the reality they had ignored for years. They had wanted my house for my brother. Now, they were faced with the woman they had underestimated for far too long, and she wasn't interested in charity, nor in submission. I softened my tone, just a fraction, allowing warmth to creep in. "I care about you. I always have. But care doesn't mean surrender. I've learned the hard way that self-respect must come first. If you want a seat at my table, you'll meet me there on equal terms. Not before." There was a long pause, the kind that stretches and contracts, leaving the air heavy with realization. I could see glimmers of understanding flicker in their expressions, hesitation, regret, and, finally, the first spark of acceptance. For the first time since they kicked me out, the power wasn't in their hands. It was mine. And I wasn't just holding it, I was guiding them to see what respect, accountability, and growth really meant. Weeks passed after that confrontation, and the change, subtle at first, began to take shape. My mother enrolled in therapy, her messages no longer laced with guilt or expectation, but tentative attempts at connection. My father started to listen rather than dictate, asking questions, offering advice only when invited. Even my brother began to pursue a small business venture he'd dreamed of for years, but had never dared attempt without leaning on me. It wasn't perfect. Progress never is. But it was real. I watched from my living room, my grandmother's silver locket resting against my collarbone, catching the morning light like a quiet reminder. The same locket that had been my talisman in the darkest nights now shimmered with triumph. I could see how far I had come, not just in wealth or success, but in the depth of my own strength, resilience, and capacity for grace. There were moments when the past whispered to me, memories of the nights I cried in empty apartments, the sting of rejection, the bitter taste of being dismissed. But I no longer felt trapped by them. Each memory was a stepping stone, a marker of the woman I had become, someone who could face betrayal, loss, and cruelty and still choose to rise, to build, to shine. I found a quiet satisfaction in watching my family navigate their own growth. I wasn't rescuing them. I was witnessing the power of accountability and choice. And in that, I discovered a new kind of joy, one that wasn't tied to recognition or approval but to the truth that I had created a life that was entirely my own. As I sipped my coffee one morning, sunlight spilling across the kitchen, I touched the locket and whispered to myself, "This is yours. You earned it. You chose yourself." The storm of the past had passed. What remained was strength, independence, and a profound understanding that boundaries were not walls. They were the foundation of love and respect. And for the first time in my life, I could say, with complete certainty, I am home. I am whole. And no one, not even family, can take that from me. Bottom of form.